The evening sun spilled over the Wyoming hills like melted honey, softening the rugged land and painting the sky with orange and rose. The wind was kind that day, quiet enough that the prairie grass barely bent. From the distance, the faint creak of wagon wheels broke the stillness, a sound as weary as the woman leading them. Her name was Clara Mayfield, and she hadn't eaten since the night before. The wagon she guided wasn't hers. It belonged to a couple she had worked for in the next town, caring for their children and tending the kitchen. When the husband's temper flared one too many times, Clara had decided to leave. She left before dawn, taking nothing but her coat, her boots, and her mother's worn Bible. Dust clung to her lashes and hair. Her hands trembled from fatigue. Yet she pressed on, whispering to herself, "Just one more mile, Clara. One more mile." When the last wheel broke and the wagon leaned sideways with a groan, she sat in the dirt and tried not to cry. Ryder was crossing the ridge above her at that very moment, a man dressed in a dark duster, his hat shadowing his eyes. The horse he rode was sleek, proud, and moved like it knew it belonged to someone important. The man noticed her immediately. Out here, a stranded traveler meant trouble or tragedy. He spurred his horse gently and rode down the slope. "Miss, you all right?" Clara looked up, startled. The man's voice was deep, calm, and gentle, though it carried a note of command. She tried to stand, but stumbled. I'm fine, sir. Just, my wheel broke, and I can fix it. I just need a few minutes." He dismounted, gloved hands brushing the dust from his coat. "You've been walking a long way," he said, eyes scanning her torn shoes and cracked lips. "You don't look fine." "I can work for food if that's what you're thinking," she said quickly, shame coloring her cheeks. "Please, I can cook, sew, or clean. I don't want charity." The man's lips twitched slightly, like he'd heard that same speech before. "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering help." He tipped his hat. "Name's Lucas Hallway." Her eyes widened a little. Even in her tired state, she'd heard that name before. The Hallway Ranch was known across 3 counties miles of fenced land, hundreds of cattle, and one of the richest cowboys in Wyoming. She swallowed. "Clara Mayfield." "Well, Miss Mayfield," he said, looping the reins over his arm, "you're coming with me. That wagon's done for." "I can't just—" "You can," he interrupted softly. "And you will." That night, Clara found herself seated at a long wooden table in the Hallway Ranch house. It was the grandest home she'd ever seen: solid oak floors, oil lamps on every wall, and the smell of roasted beef drifting from the kitchen. Lucas had his cook prepare her a plate, but she barely touched it. After years of doing other people's work, it felt strange to sit still while others served her. "Eat," Lucas said simply from across the table. She shook her head. "I can't eat if I haven't worked for it." He leaned back, studying her with quiet interest. "You've been walking half the day in the sun. You've earned that meal a dozen times over." Her eyes flickered up. "Please, I can work. Let me earn my stay. I'll help in the kitchen, in the stables, anywhere you need me." Something softened in his gaze. "You think you need to prove your worth to stay alive," he said quietly. "But I don't run my place like that, Miss Mayfield." He stood, his chair scraping the floor. "No one who's hungry needs to earn a plate here." She looked down, her throat tight. "You sound too kind for a man with so much." Lucas smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why I still have it." The next morning, Clara woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of roosters. Her clothes had been washed, her boots cleaned. On the dresser, a folded dress waited, a simple cotton piece that fit her better than the worn one she'd arrived in. Downstairs, she found Lucas by the porch railing, sipping coffee while the sun rose over the valley. "Morning," he greeted without turning. "Sleep well?" "Yes, sir. Thank you. For everything." He nodded. "You can drop the sir. I'm not your employer." Her heart fluttered a little. Then why are you helping me? He turned finally, eyes deep and unreadable. Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. He handed her a cup. You want to work? Fine. The cook's out with a broken ankle. Kitchen needs hands. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. She worked all day, and by evening, she'd baked biscuits so soft the ranch hands were calling her angel cook. Lucas watched from the doorway, amusement flickering across his usually steady expression. When she caught him looking, she blushed. You're going to make me nervous, Mr. Holly. He chuckled. You handle a kitchen better than most men handle a herd? Days turned into weeks. Clara's laughter returned. The lines of worry around her eyes began to fade. She planted flowers by the porch, sang while washing dishes, and even rode out with Lucas once to see the far pastures. There was something unspoken between them, an understanding born of silence and shared glances. She never asked about his past, and he never pried into hers. But one evening, as thunder rolled across the horizon and rain began to fall, Lucas found her sitting on the porch steps, staring at the storm. You afraid of lightning? He asked, taking a seat beside her. No, she whispered. Just afraid of losing peace? Every time life gets quiet, something happens. He nodded slowly. Peace doesn't stay unless you build a fence around it. She smiled faintly. You mean like your cattle? He chuckled. Something like that. When lightning cracked the sky, she flinched. He reached over, gently covering her trembling hand with his. You don't have to be strong all the time, Clara. She turned to him, her voice trembling. That's all I know how to be. He looked at her for a long moment before saying quietly, Then it's time someone taught you how to rest. That night, she couldn't sleep. His words echoed in her mind like a prayer. The next morning, she decided to leave a note. You've done too much. I can't repay it. Thank you for everything. She placed it on the table and slipped out before sunrise, but Lucas was already saddling his horse. Running again? He asked softly. She froze. I'm not running. I'm letting you be free of me. He shook his head. You think helping you chain me? Her eyes filled with tears. I've been nothing but a burden. He stepped closer, raindrops clinging to his hat brim. Clara, look at me. When she did, his voice lowered, steady as a heartbeat. You're not a burden. You're the piece I didn't know I was missing. She blinked. What are you saying? I'm saying, he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. You don't have to work anymore. Not for food, not for shelter. Not for your worth. Tears slid down her face. Then what do I do? He smiled gently, a kind of smile that melted every wall she'd built. You rest beside me. That day, the ranch hands saw their boss laugh more than he had in years. Clara stayed, though she still helped in the kitchen and rode the trails at sunrise. Lucas never stopped her from working, but he made sure she knew she didn't have to dot in time. Her laughter filled the halls, and the ranch once quiet and lonely felt alive again. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the golden hills, Lucas took her hand and said softly, You said you only knew how to be strong. Well, Clara, strength looks a lot like this standing where you're loved. She smiled through tears, resting her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in years. She didn't beg to work, she simply stayed.